Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matt Trujillo, Senior Manager of Strategic Initiatives at Advancement Project California. We understand that there's a lot going on right now, from wildfires to a global pandemic and uprisings demanding justice for Black lives. And we're so grateful that you've joined us tonight to connect, recharge, and celebrate our champions for equity. Tonight's program has something for everyone, from amazing speakers, a musical performance, and my personal favorite, trivia. The program will begin in a few minutes. For those of you joining us via Zoom, we do ask that you remain on mute during the program. While we aren't able to hear your voices, we'd love to see your beautiful faces and smiles. So please turn on your cameras and wave hello as we wait for the program to start. This is also a great opportunity for those of you who have received a Connect and Recharge care package to show off your swag. You can put on your Advancement Project California face mask, or you could show off your APCA utensils. You know, speaking of utensils, when I was younger, my parents would get angry at me when I would play with my utensils. But to be honest with you, that was always a risk I was willing to take. Anyways, for folks on Zoom, this is a chance for you to set up your viewing preferences. For the best viewing experience, be sure to select speaker view in the top right corner, and also select hide non-video participants. We also suggest that you put the window on full screen mode as well. If you need help figuring out any of those settings, just let us know in the chat box and someone will reach out to us. For folks joining through Facebook or YouTube, you don't need to worry about any of that stuff. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. We're so glad you can make it. We're expecting folks from all across the state, and we want to make sure that we build community tonight. So please be sure to introduce yourself at our comment box. Let us know where you're tuning in from and what you're most excited about seeing tonight. The chat and comment boxes are going to be open during the program, so start going. As you hear from our amazing speakers, we'd love to see your reactions and reflections. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be starting soon.
Hi, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining. I'm Alejandra Ramirez Arate, Policy and Research Analyst at Advancement Project California, and we have a really great program planned for you tonight. The event will begin in just a few minutes. For our sponsors and ticket buyers joining us via Zoom, we do ask that you remain on mute for the duration of the program, but we'd love for you to turn on your cameras now and wave hello to your fellow equity advocates. You should all have received a Connect and Recharge care package, so feel free to model or show off your Advancement Project California swag. We can take out our Yes on 15 to celebrate Governor Newsom endorsing schools and communities first. If you registered in September and you haven't received your box yet, our apologies, they're being sent via United States Postal Service. Please use this time to get settled in and comfortable, grab a snack, grab your drink of choice, and get your viewing preferences all set up. Be sure to select speaker view in the top right corner, select hide non-video participants, and put the window on full screen for the best viewing experience. If you need help figuring out these settings, let us know in the chat and one of our colleagues will reach out to support you. For folks joining us through YouTube or Facebook live stream, you don't need to worry about any of that. You can just sit back and enjoy the show. We're so glad you could be with us tonight. Now, across all viewing platforms, please let us know in the chat or the comment box where you're tuning in from today and what you're most looking forward to seeing in our time tonight. For example, I'm coming to you live from Los Angeles County in the beautiful but hot San Fernando Valley, and I'm really excited for the speaker lineup today. Feel free also to share reactions and reflections in the chat on what you're hearing throughout the course of the program. We'd love to hear from you. This is your community, this is a safe space, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, folks, hopefully everyone is all settled in and comfortable now. We're going to get the event started. Folks on Zoom, please turn off your cameras so we can give the program our full and undivided attention. You'll have a chance at the end of the event to turn them back on and participate in a really exciting group photo. Thank you again for being here, and we really hope you enjoy the program.
Hello, everybody. My name is Amanda Gorman, and I'm the inaugural Youth Poet Laureate of the United States of America. I'm super excited to be here, albeit virtually and in a quick cameo, for the Champions of Equity Awards. Over the past few weeks, I've been learning a lot more about the Advancement Project California and just all of the incredible work that you've been doing. So it's a real honor for me to be here. I'm going to perform a poem that I actually wrote during these months of quarantine and COVID. For me, it was really trying to find a way to use language to remind us of the things that are good and honest and hopeful in the world. And I think that starts with focusing on community and the ways in which we can all uphold each other. This is called The Miracle of Morning. I thought I'd awaken to a world in morning, heavy clouds crowding, a society storming, but there's something different on this golden morning, something magical in the sunlight, wide and warming. I see Dad with the stroller taking a jog. Across the street, a bright-eyed girl chases her dog. A grandma on a porch fingers her rosary. She grins as her young neighbor brings her groceries. While we might feel small, separate, and all alone, we've never been more tightly tethered. Because the question isn't if we will weather this unknown, but how we will weather this unknown together. So, on this meaningful morn, we mourn and we mend like lights. We can't be broken even when we bend as one. We will defeat both despair and disease. We stand with healthcare heroes and all employees, with families, libraries, waiters, schools, artists, businesses, restaurants, hospitals hit hardest. We ignite, not in the light, but in lack thereof. For it is in loss that we truly learn to love. In this chaos, we will discover clarity. In suffering, we must seek solidarity. For it is our grief that gives us our gratitude, shows us how to find hope if we ever lose it. So ensure that this ache wasn't endured in vain. Don't ignore the pain. Give it purpose. Use it. Read children's books, dance alone to DJ music. Know that this distance will make our hearts grow fonder. From a wave of woes, our world will emerge stronger. We'll observe how the burdens braved by humankind are also those moments that make us humans kind. Let each morning find us courageous, brought closer, seeking the light before the fight is over. When this ends, we'll smile sweetly. Finally seeing, in testing times, we became the best of beings. Thank you so much for having me. Congratulations to all of the awardees, and have a wonderful time. Hello, everybody. My name is Amanda Gorman, and I'm the inaugural Youth Poet Laureate of the United States of America. I'm super excited to be here, albeit virtually and in a quick cameo, for the Champions of Equity Awards. Over the past few weeks, I've been learning a lot more about the Advancement Project California and just all of the incredible work that you've been doing. So it's a real honor for me to be here. I'm going to perform a poem that I actually wrote during these months of quarantine and COVID. For me, it was really trying to find a way to use language to remind us of the things that are good and honest and hopeful in the world. And I think that starts with focusing on community and the ways in which we can all uphold each other. This is called The Miracle of Morning. I thought I'd awaken to a world in morning, heavy clouds crowding, a society storming, but there's something different on this golden morning, something magical in the sunlight, wide and warming. I see Dad with the stroller taking a jog. Across the street, a bright-eyed girl chases her dog. A grandma on a porch fingers her rosary. She grins as her young neighbor brings her groceries. While we might feel small, separate, and all alone, we've never been more tightly tethered. Because the question isn't if we will weather this unknown, but how we will weather this unknown together. So, on this meaningful morn, we mourn and we mend like lights. We can't be broken even when we bend as one. We will defeat both despair and disease. We stand with healthcare heroes and all employees, with families, libraries, waiters, schools, artists, businesses, restaurants, hospitals hit hardest. We ignite, not in the light, but in lack thereof. For it is in loss that we truly learn to love. In this chaos, we will discover clarity. In suffering, we must seek solidarity. For it is our grief that gives us our gratitude, shows us how to find hope if we ever lose it. So ensure that this ache wasn't endured in vain. Don't ignore the pain. Give it purpose. Use it. Read children's books, dance alone to DJ music. Know that this distance will make our hearts grow fonder. From a wave of woes, our world will emerge stronger. We'll observe how the burdens braved by humankind are also those moments that make us humans kind. Let each morning find us courageous, brought closer, seeking the light before the fight is over. When this ends, we'll smile sweetly. Finally seeing, in testing times, we became the best of beings. Thank you so much for having me. Congratulations to all of the awardees, and have a wonderful time.
What a way to kick off tonight's program with Amanda Gorman's spoken word performance of Miracle of the Morning. You got to see her twice and hear her once. Thanks, 2020. We appreciate you so much. So while we appreciate 2020, let's give Amanda Gorman a virtual round of applause and appreciate her brilliance and incredible creativity as she reminds us to find beauty, hope, and connectivity, even in the midst of these trying times. I'm going to be doing this a lot tonight, jazz hands, so thank you so much, Amanda. Good evening, everyone. My name is Wendy Killian, and I will be your MC for the evening. On behalf of my colleagues at Advancement Project California, it's my honor to welcome all of you to our first ever virtual Champions for Equity Awards. When we started our 20th anniversary last year, none of us could have imagined that this year's event would look so profoundly different. But we are an adaptable bunch, and we thank you so much for joining us on Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube. Amanda's poem perfectly brings to life tonight's theme, Connect and Hard. We chose the theme back in February. If anyone can remember back to February, well, way back then, we knew there would be a lot at stake for our communities in 2020. And our staff, along with community partners and our allies in government and philanthropy, were focused on getting a complete and accurate count in the census, registering and mobilizing voters for November's election, and encouraging folks to vote yes on Prop 15, formerly called Schools and Communities First. With all of these priorities in mind, we envisioned this event as a chance to come together, take a deep breath, and get inspired for the last charge ahead. Little did we know, though, that in the intervening months, we would witness a global pandemic and the loss of far too many loved ones, an economic freefall, and the most profound racial justice uprising since the 60s. These last 6 months have been hard for so many reasons, and it's tough not to be together tonight for the hugs, the smiles, and the camaraderie. That's That's why our theme is even more relevant today than it was back in February. We are connected. It just looks a little different. The leaders of the racial justice movement in California have risen to these challenges and so many more, and they are leading the charge in envisioning a new path for our state. And I don't know about you, but I could use a recharge. The program we have for you today, we hope will help. We have a great lineup of speakers, performers, and we are honoring two of the boldest, smartest, and bravest women I know. We are so glad that you are joining us today. The choice you made to connect and recharge with us is an important reason that we are staying the course and making positive change for our communities. So as you all know, this is a fundraising event. So let me take a brief moment to continue to thank our generous sponsors, many of whom continue to sponsor us year after year. And we're not done raising money for Advancement Project California. Of course we're not. Throughout the evening, we will continue to raise funds to support our incredible racial equity work across California. Just visit the short link you see below, and on your phone or another device, so that you can stay in this program, make a donation, and we will add that to our total. The money we raise tonight will produce action research to pinpoint racial disparities, develop cutting-edge ways to change public policy so it delivers results for low-income communities of color, and partner with our allies in community-based organizations. Our work amplifies and leverages theirs for transformative change. And don't forget to use the hashtag Champions for Equity to let your friends and family know that you are connecting and recharging for a better California for all. Let's give ourselves a big round of applause. Yes, jazz hands. Okay, folks, so as I mentioned, Prop 15, formerly known as Schools and Communities First, is a huge push for us and social justice advocates across the state. You saw our first quiz question earlier. That is a mouthful. And now here's your answer. And now we'll hear from John Kim, Executive Director of Advancement Project California. John will hate that I spend any time introducing him, but he can't rush me off the stage since we aren't in the same room this year. So let me share a few fun facts about John. First, he's held many different positions with Advancement Project California in his 18+ years with the organization, including spearheading the launch of healthycity.org and racecounts.org, more than tripling our budget and staffing over the years, and building and strengthening statewide alliances and coalitions with community partners. All while being the humble, audacious, and kind leader we, the staff, and the movement need him to be. And in the last 6 months of working from home, John has gone out of his way to make sure the team is safe, connected, and focused first on their health and that of their families. Now more than ever, I'm so lucky to call him my friend and my boss. Please join me in welcoming to the Zoom stage, John Kim.
Afternoon, everyone. You know, with everything going on this year, there's some consideration of whether or not to host this event. For me, given the pace of the news, even today, and the fatigue felt by all of us, taking a moment and coming together as a movement, as a community, felt more important than ever. So I thank our sponsors, the staff, the amazing honorees and guests for this opportunity to reconnect, to recharge, and get ready for the next leg of this race. You know, just about exactly 6 months ago on March 12th, I did my last walk around our offices here to make sure that everyone was out or to say goodbye to the final stragglers. Until that moment, we had been rushing around to make sure we had everything ready for the shutdown. And as I walked around the office, it hit me in loose and unspecific terms, but it hit me the magnitude of what was about to happen to us. As some staff were loaded up in the elevator to leave, I anxiously yelled out for them to stay safe and to be careful, because I was unsure what awaited us in this new world. And I could not say with confidence that it was going to be okay. And that broke my heart. Little did I know my heart would break continuously over the next 6 months. It would break as we witnessed the systematic sacrificing of Black, Latinx, and Indigenous lives to COVID and to the altar of the status quo. Then again, with the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Andres Guardado and Dijon Kizzee, the acceleration of white supremacist violence inside and outside of police departments have left our cities more violent and less safe. There was the loss of millions of jobs and the mental health crisis that's bubbling right below it all, and the fires in the air above that chokes us and leaves the sky this ominous hue. I guess what's most heartbreaking for me is how unsurprising so much of this is. Generations of extractive injustice, generations of unchecked greed, generations of manipulated hatred, this chaos we see today, all of it was the only likely outcome for the path we've been taken down as a country. In the midst of all this heartbreak, I've been fortunate to look towards the things closest to me to keep me whole. This is a time that's given me clarity about what's most important and how very, very lucky I am to be quarantined with my wife and partner, Jung-hee Choi, and our 2 kids, Naya and Ellis. They are the best quarantine anyone could ask for. And I am certain that I've been an absolute delight to be around every day, every hour for the past 6 months. And I only get to see my staff through Zoom now, but I am in awe of how they've shown up through all of this. Through their own heartbreak and pulling double and triple duty at home, they show up strong for this work and for each other. Due to their strategic thinking and deep relationships with movement across the state, our team has been able to reorganize our work very quickly in response, and the impact has been breathtaking. But what's made me so proud, most proud, is how we've shown up with our partners. We show up ready to fight together, sometimes to lead, sometimes to follow, but always with the humility that this moment is bigger than any of us, and so therefore we need to move with all of us. In the beginning, it was a lot about playing defense, about pushing against the preordained topography of this state, which flows all of the bad things, all of the burdens directly onto the backs of Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And lately, we've collectively, though, been able to play some offense. And now in November, not only do we have the most consequential national election of our lifetime, but also one of the most consequential state ballots in a generation. See, for California, to be clear, in order for us to move forward, we have to fully unmoor ourselves from our racist past. Of course, there are massive racial disparities in COVID cases and deaths because for generations, we've decided that the health and well-being of people of color was not worth the investment. Of course, our streets are lit up with protests because we trained the police to be warriors and then underfund the necessary social workers and mental health specialists, all in this dumbfounding blind hope that we could somehow suppress or incarcerate everything that ails us. Of course, we see kids at the local Taco Bell parking lots so they can use the free Wi-Fi to attend school. Because we woefully underfunded our schools and let corporations commodify and make profits off of things that should be public goods. This November, we finally have this opportunity to turn a corner as a state. In the 60s and 70s, as the state was becoming more diverse and people of color were starting to fight for their rightful place in this state, unfortunately, California's response in 1978 was our very own race-baiting, crazy-eyed, grievance-filled campaign that was an early prototype of what we're seeing on the national stage today. Since then, we've had this foundational error baked into our state's constitution that's allowed large corporations to walk off with all the goodies while we are left with less services, less parks, not enough funding for our schools, but more police and higher fees and fines. Prop 15 is the first real chance in 42 years to finally fix those corporate loopholes. So we are proud to join nurses, teachers, firefighters, and now the governor to say enough to corporations not paying their fair share, especially in this time of such great need. and especially since many of these large corporations are making massive profits. In November, we also have a chance to overturn Prop 209. You know, if Prop 13 was the animating political loss for the generation before me, Prop 209 was the one that launched many in my generation into this work. The ugliness of that campaign, the lie that we just needed to get out of the way of some mythical, benevolent meritocracy is just baffling that that worked in the 90s. We know that the vestiges and the gravitational pull of white supremacy is a poison that is embedded in all of our public systems. And without the eyes to see that poison or the tools to extract it, we do not stand a chance. We are all in for these campaigns, as well as on the steering committee for Measure J right here in LA County, which will shift public funds away from the punishment and incarceration system towards the care and housing and healing systems, which is exactly what we need right now. This is the kind of deep structural fixes we need to get out of this Gordian knot we are trapped in. And this is how we let go of the ghosts of our past. This is how we move forward towards a state we deserve. You know, I've been reading a lot of history and historical fiction lately, you know, in the evenings. In particular, I've been drawn to the stories of regular people rising to the challenge of immigrating from one place to another, from one world to another. The process of immigration requires the simultaneous acts of leaving and arriving, of letting go and creating anew, of facing the fear of the unknown and having the courage to chart our own path. I'm drawn to these stories because no matter how difficult these months have been, I like to think of us, all of us, as immigrants, closing the book on one chapter of who we were and opening the next chapter of who we want to be. One story that's been ringing in my head is the story of brave sailors in the South Pacific that took almost miraculous voyages centuries before any Western society dared to venture far from their coasts. These voyagers in the South Pacific would leave their familiar skies and stars, and they were sailing even beyond the wisdom of their ancestors. And at one point, one of these voyagers asked another, "Are we sailing with just a dream as our guide?" For California, it's time that we have the courage to leave familiar shores that no longer serve us. It's time to leave behind the old world and let our creativity, our dreams chart the next course. These offices here will be full again. All of us here, our friends, our supporters and partners, we will break bread together once again. And we will, at that point, raise a glass that we got through this together, that we won what we needed to win, and we pushed back when we needed to push back. And now we'll be able to sail under a new sky. We will have a new set of stars to navigate by and to set our course with our values and our dreams as our guide. Now, in the constellation of leaders that I use as a guide, I'm honored to be joined by several of them today. I know Congressmember Bass, Dr. Ferrer, Julian Castro have inspired and driven so many of us forward in these very tough times. So let me get out of the way and introduce Megan McClare, a former Advancement Project California staff person, but forever part of our family, who is now currently the acting Chief Deputy Director of LA County's Department of Public Health. Thank you.
It is with great pleasure that I am here to present the Transformative Partner Award to Dr. Barbara Ferrer. Barbara has been my mentor for almost 10 years, and I feel blessed to have worked under her leadership at Boston Public Health Commission and now at LA County Department of Public Health. Barbara continues to be a galvanizing force for those in the fight for equitable resources and power in low-income communities of color. She inspires public health employees and advocates alike with her vision for equity, commitment to collaboration, and passion for justice. In her 3 short years at LA County Public Health, she's already made long-standing impacts. She led an unprecedented effort with Supervisor Solis and community organizations to reach 21,000 residents impacted by high rates of lead exposure due to the Exide battery plant. This community-driven effort to create more transparency from the state regarding environmental exposures resulted in the allocation of $5.2 million to fund lead mitigation efforts. She executed a vision both for the Center for Health Equity and the Office of Violence Prevention, with a renewed focus on strategies that are both responsive to neighborhood needs, trauma-informed, and matched with resources dedicated to community-based coalitions. She's directed that our department's data analysis be accurate, timely, and actionable, and that it speak to the drivers of inequities and elevate the voices of those most impacted. She spearheaded in a groundbreaking partnership with the Department of Mental Health, Planned Parenthood LA, LA Unified School District, and LA County Office of Education an effort to address the social, emotional, and sexual health needs of young people by establishing 50 student well-being centers. She did this in record speed in county terms throughout higher need high schools across the county. This past January, our department and the entire world was hit with the whirlwind of COVID-19. Barbara has remained our steadfast leader in this moment. She's led our response with systems-level thinking, political savvy, and impact-driven strategies. Under her direction, we are the first county in the state that mandated face coverings among essential workers, and she continues to champion efforts that support worker protections. We are one of the only large health departments in the U.S. that sustained contact tracing throughout our response, and she continues to push us to learn from and improve those efforts to best reach those most impacted by COVID. And this includes directing $13 million to community-based organizations to support system navigation and communication strategies. And most importantly, she leads with unwavering kindness and compassion for our county's residents. These are extremely challenging times. People are dealing with frustration, uncertainty, anxiety, irreparable loss. And Barbara understands that and pushes us to operate with grace with each other, even when times get hard or interactions get tense. And even in those busiest of moments, Barbara's always remembering a colleague who's going through health challenges, or someone who's lost a loved one, or even coworkers we've lost this year. She sends notes with abrazos, sends food or flowers, or calls bereaved loved ones. She just really cares, and it's so important to have that in a time like this. And this award is particularly special, not just because I'm an Advancement Project California alum, but also because of the important partnership that exists between DPH and Advancement Project. Together, we've led transition of the Office of the Advancement of Early Child Care and Education that ensures that equity is embedded in all efforts to improve the availability, quality, and accessibility to early child care and education programs. This year, we successfully advanced the countywide Alternatives to Incarceration effort, which redirects resources from the jail system to vital supportive services and efforts within high-need communities. And now we are collaborating to implement culturally and linguistically inclusive strategies to reach communities that are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. These efforts speak to the value of a strong, coordinated, inside-out strategy, which represents our shared commitment that all social justice efforts in LA County are driven by organizers and residents who know these issues best. So please join me in honoring Dr. Barbara Ferrer with the Transformative Partner Award. I can think of no one who deserves this recognition more.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for this tremendous honor. And also, and probably more importantly, for all the support that so many have extended to the Department of Public Health during these most difficult times. I'm extraordinarily grateful and deeply appreciative of everyone who has joined us today. And I particularly appreciate that all you are working so hard collectively to create a more just society. To start with, I want to thank my dear friend and colleague, Megan McClare, for her kind introduction, and more importantly, for her brilliant leadership and deep commitment to advancing racial justice. Her ability to bring people together so that they can find common ground and get to work on efforts that really make a difference is both impressive, and it's been a game changer here in LA County at the Department of Public Health, and also when I worked with her in Boston at the Boston Public Health Commission. I feel so blessed to work with her, and you know, we're joined by an entire team here at the Department of Public Health of amazing public health practitioners. And I know you all join me in thanking John Kim and the Advancement Project for leading transformative efforts that really have built power for residents and that insists that our resources are aligned to ensure that everyone has what's needed for them to be able to be healthy and have a fulfilling life. For more than 20 years, the Advancement Project has led efforts that really challenge the root causes of educational, economic, health, and social inequities. And because of your work, our country and our county is traveling to, as noted by the brilliant and great Reverend Martin Luther King, the sunlit path of racial justice. I also want to thank Secretary Castro, who I know will be joining us shortly, for all of his work supporting policy and practice changes that build a country where everyone has what they need to thrive. Whether as the mayor of San Antonio or as the secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development under President Obama, or as a very strong candidate for President of the United States, Secretary Castro has taught all of us of what it means to lead with integrity, vision, and compassion. I'm also really honored to be here today with Congressmember Karen Bass. And I want to thank the Congressmember for all of her strength and leadership during one of the most difficult years we've had, between the pandemic and the disproportionality that is hurting our Black, Latinx, and Indigenous communities, and where we've been witness to the heartbreaking murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many others. Congressmember Bass has really been our voice in Washington, and she's been our voice here in LA. We've desperately counted on her to lead some of the national efforts at addressing racism in our criminal justice, healthcare, and housing systems. When I first came to LA a few years ago, Congressmember Bass was already one of my heroes. She's known to so many of us as a brilliant community organizer, and she brought together hundreds and thousands of people to create, influence, and change policy. I'm so inspired by her courage and her work, and I thank you, Congressmember Bass. I'm also grateful to everybody who helped get me here today. There's really nothing I've ever done in my entire life that I've done by myself. I've really benefited from the wisdom and guidance of so many people who have cared for me, people who have had patience to teach me and teach me again, people who have redirected me when I've been on the wrong path, and people who have really made it clear when I've fallen down that they're there to pick me up. And so I want to thank my family, my friends, all of my colleagues here at the Department of Public Health, all of my partners here in LA County for everything you do to fight for justice, because we're in this together. And I've had an opportunity these past few months to work with so many of you as we try to do everything we can to slow the spread of COVID-19. And it's really disproportionately affected our most vulnerable communities, our essential workers, residents and staff at nursing homes, Black, Brown, and Pacific Islander communities and families, and those who live in neighborhoods that for years have seen disinvestments in infrastructure and services. And although I feel so grateful for all of the hard work, and particularly the leadership of the Advancement Project and so many others who are here today in reducing our overall rates of new cases, hospitalizations, and deaths, because they all are declining, the gaps in health outcomes by race and ethnicity and by levels of poverty, they continue. And it's these inequities that really require us to do more if we want to make sure that COVID-19 doesn't end up on the same familiar list of other health outcomes that people of color experience with disproportionate rates of illness and unfortunately high rates of death. On average, here in LA County, our Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders, Blacks, Latinx, Latino, and Latina communities are 2 to 4 times more likely to test positive, be hospitalized, and unfortunately die than white residents across LA County. And people who live in communities with high rates of poverty are 4 times more likely to die of COVID-19 than people who live in communities with very little poverty. I don't think this heartbreaking disproportionality needs to continue. We do have a chance to still turn this around. Racism and inequitable access to the very resources that are needed for good health have played a significant role in this pandemic, as we've seen it play out in all other health outcomes. The blueprint that AP, the Advancement Project, laid out tells us what we need to do, so we just need to do it. We need to make sure that we're protecting our workers, especially low-wage workers. And we can do this through our worker health councils, partnerships with labor unions, and strong actions against business owners and operators that fail to comply with the health officer orders, because these are essential pieces of fighting for justice. And it isn't enough to just have testing available. And I want to thank all of the partners who have, in fact, made testing much more available across many of our communities. But we need to make it easy for people to get tested. And we need to make it easy for people to get tested by someone they trust. And then if they're positive, they have to have access to care, especially because so many people in our communities have underlying health conditions that put them at great risk for serious illness from COVID-19. We also have to do a better job making sure that we're offering services and support to those who need to isolate and quarantine, recognizing the reality of overcrowding and insecure housing that permeates across this entire county. We're going to need to provide resources, and by this I mean money, to trusted community organizations so they can do what they do best: connect with residents, advocate for policy and practice changes, and share vitally important information on where there are risks for COVID-19 infection spreading and where there are opportunities for more safety. We never have to stop working together to dismantle the discrimination and racism that limits the opportunities and resources so essential for optimal health and well-being. Cesar Chavez once said, "It's possible to become discouraged about the injustices we see everywhere, but God did not provide us and promise us a world that would be humane and just. He gives us the gift of life that allows us to choose the way we'll use our limited time on earth. It's an awesome opportunity." Thank you so much.
Thank you, Megan and Dr. Ferrer. Dr. Ferrer, what a well-deserved honor. Let's give Dr. Ferrer a virtual round of applause. And thank you, Dr. Ferrer, for your sponsorship tonight. And now on the screen, coming up shortly, is the second quiz question about Prop 15. Start thinking about your answer. And please, if you're able, don't forget to donate. And now it's that time in the program. Who would have known that in a virtual event, we're going to ask you to stand up, but we're going to ask you to stand up and get ready to dance as we welcome to our virtual stage, Las Cafeteras, whose vibrant music sums up the beautiful diversity and creativity of California.
What time is it? It's movement time. What time is it? It's movement time. Cause we're gonna hit them streets like my brothers banging beats, cause it's movement time. Movement time. We're gonna hit them poles cause we out of control, cause it's movement time. Movement time. Gonna stand up for my sisters against all these misters. Movement time. Movement time. I ain't the type to fight, but I gotta do what's right, cause it's movement time. Movement time. Yo, cause the Underground Railroad also ran south, which led black folks to freedom with Mexico right there to receive them. 1910, it was Pancho Villa and Zapata fighting for tierra, libertad y techo. Adelitas on the front line with bullets across their pecho. 1946, it was the Mendez family that fought against segregation in schools, because before that, they treated us like fools, pushing us out into gangs, wars, and drugs. Get pissed off when we become Crips and Bloods, Pachucos, Traviesos, Hipoperas, Bomberas, Jaraneras in the street with the bomb-ass beat, talking about what's going on in my LA streets, yo. Cause we gonna hit them streets like my brother banging me, cause it's movement time. It's movement time. We gonna hit them poles cause they out of control, cause it's movement time. Movement time. In the 60s in Oakland, California, Black Panthers organized for answers. In New York, the Young Lords fought against wars. Stonewall Rebellion remained true for the rights of the LGBTQ aim. Down with native rights, no shame in their game. In the campus of California, it was Filipinos who first laid down the boycott, screaming in solidarity. one rise, one fall. You come for one, you come for all. You come for one, you come for all. Rah, rah. But see, today, Arizona and Alabama, they don't play. They carving out racist laws like it's made out of clay. I stand with Emmett, Trayvon, Oscar, and Bell, with my homeboy Mumia held in the cell, telling you I'd rather be blind than to stay quiet on the day when my people are hunt like prey. So I'm gonna stand right here for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Emmett Till, and all my folks right here, because they got a story to tell. And we gotta stand with our brothers and sisters, y'all. We gotta stand with our brothers and sisters, y'all. This song goes out to Advancement Project and all the organizations doing work. Thank you all for the work you're doing. Here we go. Yo, because we gonna stick to beats like my brothers banging beats, because it's movement time. It's movement time. We gonna hit them poles because they out of control, because it's movement time. Movement time. I ain't the type to fight, but I gotta do what's right, because it's movement time. Movement time. Movement time. Oh, nah.
Thank you, Las Cafeteras, for that amazing and powerful performance. Remember, folks, it is movement time. Let's give them a virtual round of applause. And now it's time to reveal the answer to question number 2. And if you're able, please consider making a donation on your phone or another device tonight. And now it's my extreme pleasure to introduce former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development and presidential candidate Julian Castro. On the campaign trail, Secretary Castro was one of the sharpest voices for social justice and certainly the strongest advocate for a comprehensive and compassionate immigration plan. He has kept himself quite busy in 2020, launching People First Future, whose mission is to invest in a bold new generation of progressive leaders up and down the ballot, whose campaigns are fighting for us, fighting for people who need a voice. He also just launched his first podcast, Our America, so you should definitely check that out. Now, please join me in welcoming to the Zoom stage, live from San Antonio, Texas, Secretary Julian Castro.
Hey, everybody. Hi, Wendy. It's so glad to see you and to join you. I know all of us wish that we could be doing this in person, but it's wonderful to be with you. I want to just start by thanking you for all of your leadership over the years, your activism, your voice, and the difference that Advancement Project California has been making in the lives of so many people. I'm happy to be here tonight, happy to support the effort. I also want to give a shout out to our 2 honorees this evening, Representative Karen Bass and Dr. Barbara Ferrer, who in their own right have been true champions of equity, who have fought for racial justice, for progress in this country, and have made it happen. And so you couldn't have chosen better honorees than the ones that we're recognizing tonight. And I know that they'll both continue their tremendous work on behalf of not only the people of California, but people everywhere who are vulnerable and need champions. It goes without saying that we're living through very unusual and in some ways unprecedented times in our nation's history. When historians write about this period in the years to come, they'll probably use words like unusual and unprecedented, perhaps also words like challenging and even sometimes infuriating, scary. As many have pointed out, the pandemic that we're going through has exposed in many ways the weaknesses of the society that we live in. We have a beautiful nation. that has offered a lot of opportunity to a lot of families, including mine, including so many of the people on this Zoom. But we've also seen that the most vulnerable in our country have been the hardest hit. They've also been the ones oftentimes who have been asked to step up the most. I think of so many of the farm workers in California who every day go to work in harsh conditions, oftentimes for meager pay, and ensure that everybody else has food on the table. I think of workers in meatpacking plants. I think of so many people today who are facing eviction in our country. By one estimate, up to 30 million Americans through the end of October. And the question is, where do we go now? How do we ensure that in the years to come, we live in an America where we can achieve equity, where we can achieve racial justice, social justice, and economic opportunity for every single person within our boundaries? You know, I grew up as the son of a Chicana activist. My mom, Rosie, was a hellraiser when she was young. She ran for city council in San Antonio when she was 23 years old in 1971 as part of a slate called the Committee for Barrio Betterment. The Committee for Barrio Betterment was a group of young Chicanas and Chicanos who were dedicated to trying to ensure that the city invested in all parts of town, in all communities, so that no matter the color of one's skin or what their last name was, how much money they had or didn't have, they could have decent streets and decent parks and better educational opportunity through libraries and other social services. Back in 1971, there were very, very few people of color and very few women who were able to gain a seat on the city council here in San Antonio. And that's a common story. I'm sure it was very much like that in other places, including Los Angeles. And so none of the folks who ran on the Committee for Barrio Betterment slate won that year. But on the night that my mom lost that election, a local reporter asked her about the defeat. And she said, "We'll be back." 30 years later, in 2001, I was elected at the age of 26 as the youngest city councilman at that time in San Antonio history. And as I reflect on that experience with my own family, I'm reminded that there are at least two lessons we can take to heart right now when the need to push for equity in our country is so great. The first is that progress always takes time. It never happens as quickly as any of us would like. But the second is that progress also takes all of us. It means that all of us, no matter we're in the private sector, the nonprofit sector, or the public sector, have a role to play in ensuring that progress. Things were able to change in my community here in San Antonio because we had people in the streets that were marching and protesting, yearning for change, holding public officials accountable, challenging the notions of fairness and equality and the status quo, raising their voice. But we also had folks working both behind the scenes and in front at city halls, in state legislatures, in the halls of Congress. We had folks working in their companies, in boardrooms, to try and improve the outlook that corporate America had toward people of color. And we had everyday folks working through their churches, through their neighborhood associations, through their nonprofits, to improve literacy, to improve opportunity. And the lesson there is that at this time, all of us need to play that role however we can, wherever we can, raising our voice, using our talent to ensure that we break down the institutional racism that has for too long kept too many people from being able to achieve their dreams, that we eliminate it in policing, in housing, in healthcare, in our economy. All of us are called in this season of change and adaptation to be solid stewards of progress. And that's why I'm proud that Advancement Project continues to make the impact that it does, ensuring that we can empower folks there in California, but really their voices go well beyond that. We're living in a time where the decision that we have in front of us is whether we're going to continue and try and go forward when it comes to equity and racial justice in this country, or we're going to give in to the voices that are very much trying to take us backward, including an administration and a president who is basing his electoral chances on scaring up fear among suburbanites about the potential for people of color to live next to them. And worse than that, actually scaling back on the commitment to fair housing opportunity in our country. And so the first order of business in the next 52 days is to make sure that we participate in our democracy, that we register if we're not registered, and if we are registered already, that we get out and vote. There in California, there are a number of ballot propositions that will help us achieve greater equity. And nationally, of course, there's a presidential race. Locally, so many of the decisions that impact upward mobility and quality of life and fairness and equality are made by county supervisors and city council members, who some of whom are also on the ballot. And so we're called during this time, these 52 days, to use all of our energy and our resources, everything that we can give as volunteers, as contributors, to ensure that our democracy works for everybody. One of the ways that you can do that is by supporting Advancement Project California and the great work that they are doing. And I hope that everybody will. In the years to come, I believe that we can achieve an America where we see not only healthcare as a human right, but also things like housing and clean air and clean water and the opportunity to achieve one's dreams. And we fulfill the greatest aspirations of this country and celebrate its wonderful diversity in a nation where no matter who you are, your talent can take you anywhere. That's the dream that I know a lot of us share, and that so many folks on this Zoom are working toward. One day, when we achieve it, it'll be due in no small measure because of your efforts. Thank you for making them. Take care.
Thank you, Secretary Castro, for joining us tonight. Your words were just what we needed to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's give him a virtual round of applause. I know you're probably over the virtual round of applause, but that's the best we have, folks. So let's give it our gusto. Now, our third and final question for Prop 15. Again, voting for Prop 15 is one of the most important things you can do on November 3rd to ensure a better future for our children. A yes on 15 will put more money towards health and human services for our families. And now it's time to present the Champion for Equity Award. I'm so pleased to introduce Dr. Cheryl Grills. She's a longtime core member of the racial equity movement in Los Angeles. Dr. Grills has brought humanism and kindness to our movement, understanding that trauma must be healed before true change can begin. Welcome, Dr. Grills, and thank you for presenting this award.
This is truly an honor to present the Champion for Equity Award to my friend, Shiro, and co-conspirator, Congresswoman Karen Bass. I can't think of anyone who deserves this particular award more than Karen. Since her teen years in high school, she has been thinking about, innovating, and championing justice for those left out and left in the shadows of this democracy. Karen is a woman we can trust to speak truth to power. When called upon, represent and protect the community with honesty and integrity. From her earliest years of activism straight out of high school, writing articles in the Radical School newspaper, to being a champion in the fight against apartheid, to her work as a nurse in the neonatal ICU, or as a physician's assistant in the emergency room in South LA, to founding and leading the Community Coalition, fighting the good fight for equity and justice in South LA, to leading in the most difficult times in the state of California, to navigating and leading in the halls of Congress while getting a master's degree in social work from USC. Karen was and is the poster child of resilience, community, solidarity, tenacity, vision, courage, and commitment to the greater good. Like the kings, chiefs, and queen mothers of her beloved ancestral homeland, Africa, Karen serves as the African tradition says one must lead. That is, to a mantra that instructs one to sit in humility and rise in responsibility. In each and every role Karen has been in, she has walked with courage and humility, unafraid of the truth, ever ready to confront, to listen, to see the world unveiled as it really is. One key to her success, Karen has been a faithful student of community wisdom and will. When she launched the Community Coalition, I suggested that we do a community needs assessment to confirm that the first focus of a COCO campaign, which was crack cocaine addiction that was devastating the community, was on point. Not only did Karen embrace the idea of using surveys and polls to check the pulse of the community, she got right out there and walked door to door with us collecting data. We were fearless and maybe a little naive as we walked door to door and engaged with every sector of South LA, including the gang members hanging out in the park. With our little clipboards and surveys in hand, we asked people to complete our COCO survey, which they graciously agreed to do. So when I think of KB, I am acutely aware that her life is guided by a rock-solid foundation, grounded in a profound respect for what is truly important in life: honesty, respect and love for others, service, compassion, and more. It's not just what I think. Being the researcher that I am, I surveyed a cross-section of folks, some who know her well, and others who have watched her from a distance. And I asked them to share with me in a word or a phrase how they saw Karen. Here's what I got: humble warrior, solid, straight shooter, a woman of the people, faithful to our cause, steadfast, phenomenal woman, honest, trustworthy, a regular person, class act, elegant, charismatic, a real friend, fearless, a people first person. And as one person said of Karen, quote, "There are two ways of shining light into the world: to be the candle or to be the mirror that reflects the light of others." Karen has always been the mirror. So, as we honor Congresswoman Karen Bass today, I am reminded of ancestral wisdom, which says that when we leave this earth, the true measure of our life is not what titles, money, or trinkets we've accumulated. The true measure of a life is the quality of relationships painted on a canvas of your years on this earth, the ability to walk your truth and leave a legacy for your family and community so that their canvas can be a just noticeable difference, more brilliant and spacious than your own. Karen has painted a canvas to which I am convinced the ancestors will say, well done. Your name will live on and your good deeds will yield much fruit. Thank you, KB, for living an exemplary life of purpose, dignity, and courage. No matter what is thrown your way, no matter how difficult or crazy the task, you walk with corazón firme, strong heart. You walk with cara noble, noble face. You walk with mente sana, healthy mind. Your story is the story of the people. And like the Latino dicho says, poco a poco se anda lejos. Little by little, you have and will go far. And your journey has a few more interesting twists and turns. So hold on to your seats, everyone. KB's in the house. I know that Karen has great respect for the Advancement Project California and has been a close partner for 20 years. So please join me in honoring Congresswoman Karen Bass with the Champion for Equity Award. We love you, KB, and you are so deserving of this honor. Congratulations, my friend.
Hello, everyone. Well, first off, let me thank Dr. Cheryl Grills. I call her my co-conspirator, but more important than that, I call her my friend. So let me thank you for that very kind introduction and presenting me with this beautiful award, the Champion for Equity Award. I love the title because that is absolutely how I have spent my life, fighting for social and economic justice. So thank you for presenting me an award and all of the kind things you had to say. And I want to thank John Kim. Thank you so much for your leadership. You know, we all depend on the work from the Advancement Project, whether you were talking about movements, organizers, legislators. The work that you do fuels the work that we do. And I just want to thank the Advancement Project for all that you have done over these years, and especially now, with what we're going through, that none of us could have ever imagined the situation we're in now. One with a president, a commander-in-chief, whose first job is to take care of his people, and it is so clear that he doesn't care anything about the American people. Otherwise, he would have not sat back and allowed over 190,000 of us to die. And now we know, because we heard the words coming out of his mouth, that he actually knew what was happening and basically decided to do nothing about it. I think we thought maybe he didn't understand, and we certainly know better now. But in spite of all of that, we still organize and we still win. And in California, we've done such an incredible job turning the state around. Years ago, we were on the forefront of everything bad, whether we were talking about anti-affirmative action, anti-immigration, or pro-mass incarceration, all of that stuff. Because we have organized, because we have won, we have been able to turn the tide. And I'm looking forward to, in a little over 50 days, us actually repealing the anti-affirmative action initiative and us repealing parts of Prop 13 that have essentially gutted education and social services in the state of California. But it's because of our organizing that we have been able to do that. And after the horrific torture and murder of George Floyd that everyone in the world could see on camera, the organizing and activism that happened afterwards, the thousands of people that were in the street in every state in the United States, people around the world protesting, and all 54 nations on the continent of Africa waged a protest at the United Nations because of systemic racism in the United States. I've worked on this issue for decades. Never have I seen it happen where people have connected up the murder of a Black person to systemic racism. In the past, it had been, well, that's just one example, that's just one bad apple. No, it's systemic, and now the nation knows. But because of the organizing, we were able to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act out of the House Now it's languishing in the Senate, but I am hopeful that because of our organizing, we'll soon have a new Senate. And maybe we will be able to get real legislation that will begin to change the culture of policing in the United States. But the culture of policing will never really change until people are organized and demand that change. I want to thank your co-founder, Connie Rice, the guru. We called on her to help us with justice in policing and to help us get the bill through the Senate, and we're still working at that. But once again, it's just another example of the wonderful work of the Advancement Project. You know, we organized for years. I think we never even imagined that it could be as bad as it is now. But in spite of the craziness, in spite of the trauma that we have been through over these last 3.5 years, what gives me tremendous hope is because this guy, as crazy as he is, in a way did bring all of us together like he said he would. But he brought all of us together in opposition to him. And because he has been so extreme and organized and our organizing so strong, we now connect issues up that many of us understood the interconnection of the issues before, but now we understand it in a much heightened way across the country. The relationship of immigration to mass incarceration, the environment, labor organizing, all of those issues are about social and economic justice, and it is everything that the Advancement Project stands for. Ever since he was sworn in, we have seen massive protests, massive organizing, and we have won in elections all across the country. And now, in 50 plus days away, we have to win this election. And I don't say it's the most important election in my lifetime. I'm tired of saying that. I say that this election is a matter of life and death for the American people because we've had a commander-in-chief who have allowed so many of us to die, that we have to continue our organizing. And one of the things that we're going to have to do this time that we never faced before is that we're going to have to make sure that everybody votes early and that they're able to vote from home so that they don't have to risk their life voting. We have to make sure that people fill out their census form because the other side is thinking 10, 20 years ahead. And I believe that a lot of people have come to the conclusion that they cannot stop the demographic change in the United States. They know that the U.S. is getting browner and browner every year. And so what are they doing? They are looking for ways to consolidate white supremacy, to consolidate their positions of power. And they recognize through confirming judges, through the census, through voter suppression, that is the way that they stay in control even when their numbers shrink. And so the confirmation of judges is the only thing that's been happening out of the Senate. And every judge they appoint is a young person who will be there for at least a couple of generations. But what they all have in common is that they are as far to the right as possible. So I am hopeful because our organizing has been so strong, especially in the state of California, that we're going to turn this around. I know we're going to be successful, and I will tell you that one of the main reasons why our organizing is so substantive, it has so much quality to it and depth and analysis, is because of the work of the Advancement Project. So once again, I want to thank you for my award, my Champion for Equity Award. I am very honored that you would think to give this award to me. And in the future, anything that I can do to help promote your work, you know you always have me there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressmember Bass, for your continued leadership. Now, if we were in the room together, we would have just given Congressmember Bass a standing ovation. So stand up and let's give her a big virtual round of applause. And now it's time for the answer to our third and final question on Prop 15. Wow. Wow is all I can say. What an incredible evening this has been. Thank you, Amanda Gorman, Las Cafeteras, Secretary Castro, Dr. Ferrer, Congressmember Bass, and John Kim. You have given us hope, inspiration, and the energy we need to keep up the good fight. Tonight's event would not have been possible if it weren't for our incredible Advancement Project California staff, led by our development and communications team. Let's give them a virtual round of applause. Yay! And the folks behind the scenes tonight have done an incredible job, so thank you, Mobian, for being our event producer tonight. And thanks finally to all of you who showed up on Zoom, Facebook, or YouTube, and for the work you did to make California a better place for everyone, and for your support of Advancement Project California. And for those of you who made donations tonight, we see you and we thank you. Tonight's event raised over $193,000. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now for the folks on Zoom, please stay on the line. Matt and Alejandro will rejoin you. Have your Yes on 15 card handy, turn your cameras on, and get ready for a group photo. And to those of you who joined us on Facebook and YouTube, thank you so much for participating tonight. We look forward to seeing all of you in person at next year's Champions for Equity Awards. Thank you and good night.